Doing that thing Donald Trump did. He goes bing, 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 because I forgot to put on X that this show is on right now. So I'm telling everybody right now. Thank you for joining. This is Two Way Tonight. I'm Mark Halperin, your guide around the globe. We have some great folks on tonight. We're going to talk tariffs. We're going to talk Israel. We're going to talk DOGE and whatever else is on your mind. If you're on the two-way platform, please raise your yellow hand if you'd like to ask a question. That's the electronic one. And if you're watching on X or YouTube, don't raise your hand. But if you go in the chat, please don't put smack in the chat. This platform is dedicated to open conversation. So if you hear something you don't like, use it for an opportunity to learn. A little earlier today, I emailed around an email I got. I sent around in Substack an email that I got from a woman who's been a Democrat her whole life. Her family's all Democrats. And basically last night, she was so appalled by the conduct of the Democrats during the State of the Union-like speech that she basically said, I'm no longer a Democrat. It's a very powerful message. Now, as I said in the introduction, I also talked to a lot of Democrats today who were fine with what the Democrats did because they're so appalled by Donald Trump. Those are two different perspectives. If you're someone who disagrees with the lady who said she's no longer going to be a Democrat, there's no reason to send me emails demanding to know why I published it or saying, how dare I publish it? Because you should use this for an opportunity to learn. That's what we do here. If you hear a different opinion, it's unlike on other places. You're not supposed to hate watch it. You're not supposed to turn it off. You're not supposed to ask me why I'm publishing a point of view you disagree with. It's a wonderful opportunity, as I say all the time, for which you should thank me. Thank you, Mark, for bringing me a point of view I did not know, or I did not fully understand the power of that point of view. So I recommend you read it. It doesn't represent every Democrat, but there's a reason Donald Trump did better, like in every county in America in 2024 than he did in 2020. There's a reason why he won for the first time the popular vote, because the Democratic Party, on vivid display last night, in sharp relief last night, has done things on certain issues where they think, because they agree with each other, that they have the right position and the majority position, and they don't on a lot of these issues, which is why Donald Trump last night had a very good night in a lot of respects, and why Democrats turned people off, including this one woman who was so turned off that she's no longer a Democrat. So I'll say again, if you hear things you don't like tonight, you don't agree with tonight, be thankful for an opportunity to learn from Americans or people around the world who feel differently than you do. All right, a few things before we get to our main topics, which again will be tariffs and Israel, Middle East, and DOGE. First thing I want to show you was front and center last night. If you've listened to my commentary today on the various platforms today, I've been on Two Way, been on Twitter, been on Michael Smerconish, I've been on Megyn Kelly. And in all those places, I've said the same thing. How the Democrats in Congress could have sat there and not applauded for that little boy last night who was inducted into the Secret Service. From a human point of view, I do not get it. And from a political point of view, I think it was a disaster. The woman who wrote me the email, that was one of the things she seized on. So today, DJ Daniel, day 2 of his media tour, was in the Oval Office with Donald Trump. Roll number 1, please.
What a good-looking family, huh?
There's one more thing I got for you, a big hug.
Okay, good. That's very nice. Look at that family you got, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Very nice. How are you? Nice to see you, man. Nice to see you. That was a big evening last night, right?
Yes, it was.
That was a big evening.
All right. Nice moment. All right. Vice President was on the border today with the Secretary of Defense and the head of National Intelligence. You can put up number 8, please. We got some photos from that. And they talked about exactly what you'd imagine. There's the Vice President. Thumbs up. There's one other photo we have, I think. So that happened. There you go. That happened. And the mayors, we talked about this morning, the mayors were on Capitol Hill talking about immigration. The Abbey Gate accused plotter was brought back to the U.S. as the president forecast last night. There's a bunch of stuff, fallout from State of the Union type address. We can talk about it if you want to when we get to Q&A, but I want to move on. So on tariffs, very big day on tariffs regarding Mexico, Canada, on again, off again, on again, off again, on again, sort of, is the narrative in short. Here is the Commerce Secretary, who's the point person on tariffs for the administration, Mr. Lutnick, number 9, please, talking about where he thinks things stand currently.
Who are our greatest trading partners, Canada and Mexico, right? If we are so important to you, why is the border wide open? Why do we have to build a wall? Why aren't you building a wall? Why aren't you respecting America? Why do you think it's okay to disrespect America? So what they did is they disrespected America. They had caravans coming in from Mexico. They had visas just flying off the shelf from Canada, and every criminal in the world and terrorist coming in through Canada. And the president said, I've had enough. You guys are totally disrespectful, and I'm going to teach you a bit of respect. So he says, tariffs. Then they say, hold on. We'll start to respect you. And they start doing work. Then Mexico calls and says, I'll put 10,000 troops on the border. And the Canadians say, I'll put 10,000 troops on the border. And he said, if you're going to stop it, I'll give you 30 days to stop it. Show me what you can do for 30 days. But does that sound a foot off the gas? That sounds like a foot on the chest. Okay?
All right, so Mr. Lutnick has got a lot of Trump in him. They're friends. I just texted before the show after I saw that clip. I'm trying to figure out if he's always been so Trumpy in his delivery. This tariff issue, very confusing. It's substantively confusing. How do tariffs work? What would they mean? And obviously the politics of it's very confusing, in part because the president is purposely being confusing. So I want to bring in David Bahnsen. David Bahnsen is the principal at the Bahnsen Group, a wealth management firm. David is also first sponsor on this program. So we're delighted to have David here. Tomorrow night, David will be here with us at 7 o'clock Eastern time for a special two-way for the full hour. If you'd like to come to that, we'll tell you how in a minute to talk about tariffs. But we kind of want to tee things up for today. David, welcome in. Thank you for joining. We got to unmute you and fix my positioning here. Let's see. There we go. David, unmute, please. Thank you for joining. Let's just basics. Where do you think tariffs stand now on Canada and Mexico? Are they on full? Might they change again? Where do you think we are in the narrative here?
As much as anybody can know, and that includes the people in the Treasury Department, in the Commerce Department, in the NEC, and for that matter, in the Oval Office, I think it's somewhere in between. But again, the uncertainty of it is the key issue. There isn't a real coherent narrative about why they're doing what they may or may not end up doing. And I think this is very important, Mark, economically, in the sense that even if some of the feared outcomes don't come, you have an opportunity cost along the way. There is a significant amount of business activity that can't and won't take place in the midst of uncertainty, even if the end run ends up being, I think you've talked about it quite a bit over the last several weeks. I more or less have exactly your view that there's negotiation, posture, threats, and the belief that he will use this whole subject to get to a certain outcome. But I'm not sure that that's fully going to matter in the end if it suppresses a lot of economic activity along the way.
Canada and Mexico, not exactly the same, but the president does try to play them off each other. You hear a lot about Canada threatening, particularly on energy. If they went all in to try to retaliate and maybe one up what the president ends up doing, how significantly could they damage the American economy by withholding energy?
They could significantly damage the American economy. And of course, we're both in a sense of mutually assured destruction, because anything they do that damages American economy damages their own economy as well. That's sort of the nature of exchange, that by definition, there were two parties benefiting when the exchange was happening. Otherwise, the exchange wouldn't have been happening. So if something happens as an impediment to said exchange, then both parties are damaged by it. So yes, there is systemic issue. And again, because I believe all economics is marginal, it may only be marginal impact, but that is what damage to the economy is things done at the margin. And I think things done at the margin right now are a concern, because we're not dealing with something that is full steam ahead economically. There are questions about real GDP growth. There are questions about productivity, CapEx investment. A lot of those key indicators that are not just new with the new administration, and they weren't just a byproduct of a Biden moment or post-COVID moment. From a secular standpoint, these are major economic issues, Marco, since the financial crisis, of getting capital expenditures, getting non-residential fixed investment, industrial productivity. Anything that holds that back, I think, is problematic.
So my working assumption, and I'm pretty sure you agree with this, is that people like Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, Kevin Hassett, head of National Economic Council, they're willing to go along with tariffs, and they're sort of factoring them in. But they're in charge of making sure that the tariffs don't cause big harm to the American economy and the world economy, right? And last night the president said, kind of for the first time in that high-profile way, there could be some short-term pain here. Like, everybody trust me, right? In effect, trust me, short-term pain, long-term gain. What are the tripwires that, and the Treasury Secretary has like all these screens, they've got a Bloomberg terminal and all these screens up. What are the tripwires that would cause a Hassett or Bessent to go into the Oval Office and say, Mr. President, like, we need an off-ramp because these are causing damage beyond which we should attempt, and if we don't turn it around soon, it could spiral even worse.
So I'll give you a very thorough answer, but it's short. With Bessent, it's the bond market, and with Trump, it's the stock market.
Right.
And this is a rule of thumb that applies across all kinds of things. The media, certainly most pedestrians and just, normal investor participants, the S&P, the Dow, the stock market is the kind of bellwether, and it most certainly is for President Trump. With Bessent, who has a deeper level of financial markets knowledge than any Treasury Secretary in my lifetime, it is the bond market. And when the 10-year bond yield has gone from 4.8 to earlier this week, it was 4.15. It's come up now, but inflation expectations had not gone higher, or they had only marginally gone higher. It was real growth expectations that were collapsing. Bessent is well aware that that's the tripwire. I think Hassett is as well. Kevin is certainly the one I know the best. He and I have been National Review colleagues for many years, spoken together many times. He understands all this stuff thoroughly. But one of my concerns, Mark, that is a newer concern, I don't think it's the first time last night that Trump said we may face a little short-term damage. Obviously,
I hedged by saying high profile. Can't be wrong there.
Yeah, well, and it was the highest profile. Yeah. It was certainly the highest profile place he said it. Those are dangerous things to say, because I think he ended up adding what I guess was not on the teleprompter, a little parenthetical line of hopefully it won't be that bad or won't be that long, but there could be some pain. But then if you do end up getting that data points, these are the things that could be used against him dramatically, as you know, just from a political standpoint. But one of the concerns I have right now that I've been thinking about a lot this week is if we get to where I think we're going to end up getting, which is not having a full-blown trade war with a lot of noise along the way, you still have left some damage in the narrative that was used to get there. It's not just don't take Trump literal stuff. It isn't just hyperbole, and it isn't just respect the art of the deal. You can't say over and over that they're ripping us off in trade deals. And then, by the way, most of which he wrote, and then say, hey, we got fentanyl protection, we got the border closed. Because if the border is closed, but they're still ripping us off in trade deals, why would we go back? You can't say tariffs are going to make our country rich without giving future administrations, including left-leaning ones economically, a green light to use higher taxes to say we're going to make our country rich with higher taxes on American importers. So I'm concerned that even if we get to the right place, the argument along the way could stick in a way that we might be underestimating.
Yeah, the only quibble I'd make is when you use the construction, you can't say, you mean a normal, rational person who understands things the way the world typically understands them. Trump can do all of that and will and has, right?
Yeah, but
he's talking in an unorthodox way so
you're
far.
100% correct, and he can say things that I would have never thought possible, and I still am in a way complimenting him by pointing out that I think he will end up doing the right thing in the end with a lot of noise on the way. But I think my comment's even more specific about guys like Hassett and Secretary Bessent, who I do think know the same things I'm saying, and they're kind of being forced right now to borrow some of that same almost Navarro-like rhetoric to get there, and that troubles me a little bit.
Yeah, it troubles me too, and we'll see where it ends up, because if they keep down this path for weeks and weeks, as you said, amongst the impact will be economic activity. People will just become more hesitant to do anything because they don't know where it's going to end up, and they'll keep waiting. And obviously, the implications of that. All right. If you're like me or Chris Taylor, longtime fans of David Bahnsen, you already know how smart he is. Some of you are hearing maybe David for the first time, and a lot of you have your hands up to ask David questions, but you can't tonight because we want you to come tomorrow in about 23 hours and 45 minutes to ask questions of David. So if you'd like to ask questions of David, you can join us tomorrow night at 7 Eastern time. Sam put up the graphic. Sign up now to participate. We got lots of people signed up, but we'd like you. Go to our website, which is tway.tv/TBG, the Bahnsen Group. And you'll see really a button there. You can sign up to be part of the conversation tomorrow. Private, two-way, where David's going to talk in detail about tariffs. We'll talk about the way we just did, the kind of the geopolitics of it. But we'll also talk a little bit more nuts and bolts about what this will actually mean. If you own a business, if you got a savings account, if you're about to buy a new refrigerator, like all the ways that this evolving situation can evolve. So join us again tomorrow. Also, David, tell people about Dividend Cafe, which we're also recommending people sign up for. I get it, as they say in the trades, and you should too. What is Dividend Cafe?
I think the simplest way to say it is just macroeconomic commentary. There's a political edge. There is an investment edge. There's certainly nothing there to sell, but it is just my heartfelt macroeconomic commentary from, admittedly a center-right perspective, but I think people would find it objective and valuable. So it's an easy website to remember.
And what are you charging these days for the Dividend Cafe?
Well, you come for free, and then what you pay while you're there is up to you. But there's no shopping cart, so it's a pretty free experience. Yeah.
All right. So again, these are two free things we're giving away for you. Sign up for the Dividend Cafe. Come to the session, the episode tomorrow with David at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Again, you can sign up for both the newsletter and the session tomorrow at tway.tv/TBG. And David, just quickly, I've explained since you started sponsoring, tell people what the Bahnsen Group does.
We're a private wealth management firm. I'm sitting here in New York City right now. We have offices in 10 cities around the country. Newport Beach, California, and New York are our two main headquarters, but a $7 billion firm that focuses on dividend growth investing, which I think is going to be something people want to learn a lot more about in the years ahead, with or without a trade war.
Yeah. All right, David, we will see you in about 23 and a half hours. Grateful to you for being our sponsor, and we look forward to session tomorrow night. Thank you, David. All right, now, second story we're going to cover. We're doing like correspondence tonight. Jerry built a group of correspondents, is what happened today regarding the Middle East. President Trump today met in the Oval Office, number 16, please. Caroline, his press secretary, tweeted this out. He met with some of the released hostages in the Oval. You can see there, a very nice picture. President Trump took time to meet with 8 of the released hostages. The president listened intently to their heartbreaking stories. The hostages thanked the president for his steadfast efforts to bring all the hostages home. Very upbeat, very good, very life-affirming. And then the president also did this. I don't know if he did this before or after the meeting. Number 15, on Truth Social. This is just a classic Trump post. Here we go. I'm going to make this one super big so I can see it. Shalom Hamas means hello and goodbye. You can choose. Release all the hostages now, not later, and immediately return all the dead bodies of the people you murdered, or it is over for you. Only sick and twisted people keep bodies, and you are sick and twisted! ! I'm sending Israel everything it needs to finish the job. Not a single Hamas member will be safe if you don't do as I say. I've just met with your former hostages whose lives you have destroyed. So this was after. This is your last warning! For the leadership. Now is the time to leave Gaza while you still have a chance. Also to the people of Gaza, a beautiful future awaits, but not if you hold hostages. If you do, you are dead. Make a smart decision. Release the hostages now, or there will be hell to pay later. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. Now, there might be mixed feelings in some quarters about this tweet or this posting on Truth Social. But our next correspondent loves what the president did. And he loves it so much, he's willing to overlook, at least for the moment, some of his other reservations about Donald J. Trump. John Podhoretz, our Middle East correspondent, at least for now. What do you make of what the president did today, and why is it significant?
I was interested to note last night that a lot of people who are focused on this issue to the exclusion of all else were shocked and disappointed at how little attention was given to the hostages in the speech, because we had heard it had been advanced. They were in the balcony. Congress members had invited them to sit there, and that it seemed like a moment when the president would highlight this issue, talk about what he had done so far to help get the hostages out, talk a little about Steve Witkoff and his negotiating strategy, and he basically said, we did the Abraham Accords, we want the hostages out, and then he moved on. So through the day, in the sort of Israel hawk community, shall we say, there was a lot of stress because the early indications were that Witkoff was pressing Israel to negotiate directly with Hamas. And the Prime Minister's office sent out a little statement saying, we have expressed our opinion regarding negotiations with Hamas. That was all they said. In other words, they said, no, we're not negotiating directly with Hamas. We're at war with Hamas. We're doing no negotiating, which of course kind of violates the current Trump posture toward Ukraine, which is you negotiate with your enemies. Okay, so that's what happened. And so there was nervousness that Trump might go the way of Ukraine, that maybe Witkoff would say, you got to talk to Hamas. Then he would get mad at Israel for not talking to Hamas. And then Trump had this session in the Oval Office with eight of the freed hostages. And this statement is a time bomb, landmine, earthquake, because right now what it presents to the government of Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu is the possibility to put a clock on what we just heard Trump say. Trump said, everybody out, including the dead bodies.
Right now.
Israel, everything it needs. Israel is in a very weird place where this goes, which is they want all the hostages out and they want to destroy Hamas. And Bibi, more than anybody else, wants to do both and is concerned that both can't be done. So Trump has now given him the following prospect, I believe, which is he can come out tomorrow and say, you have 72 hours or you have 96 hours. We're calling up our reserves. We got our battle plan in place. We have a green light from the United States. We know that people are being tortured in there. Let them out. And then talks will begin about how you can save your lives. You members of Hamas. How you can somehow get out of there alive.
So am I right?
Yeah. Okay.
Am I right? Thank you for that. Am I right that basically with one social media post, Donald Trump changed the terms of the deal?
No, because there was no deal, right? The situation was that the first phase of the 3-phase deal ended last Saturday. 6 weeks, 42 days, hostages released. It was time for the terms of the second phase to be negotiated. What was in the second phase was theoretically that Israel was supposed to pull out of Gaza, and then they would start talking about hostages, and Hamas went silent. And Witkoff, and it wasn't really a deal. That was all predicated on things sort of moving in some positive direction.
All right. So he didn't change it so much as he's now determined the second phase unilaterally. How about that?
Yes. What he's saying is, if Israel decides to blow up Gaza, the United States will stand by it. And important proviso there is he says to Gazans, ordinary Gazans, a beautiful life awaits you, but not if you hold hostages. Now, that's a reference to the fact that, as we now know, the Bibas family and various other hostages were not being held by Hamas specifically. they were being held or are being held in apartments or in private homes in Gaza by people who are using them as slaves and stuff like that.
Right.
That was a direct message saying, you individual Gazans better let the hostages out too.
Right.
Or you're going to be hunted down and killed.
Yeah. Hopefully they're on Truth Social. So,
they'll get
the message.
They'll get the message. Yeah,
just as we've invented correspondence for the night, because we're a flexible platform. Here's my co-host, Two-Way Tonight's co-host, Alex Castellanos. Alex, question for John. Thank you for coming.
Trump is, and what's always wonderful to be on Two-Way, and it's good to meet, to see David again. I've signed up for the cafe.
And you recommend others do too.
I do too, and also, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow. You know, he has a different view of the economy. I think a much more realistic and less academic view of the economy. So I think it's a must watch. Trump's an isolationist. Trump does not like wars. He does not like starting wars. He is willing to finish them. And when he decides to go, that's it. Where do you think Trump is on this as far as unleashing American power and strength?
So I think that he is focused in a way that you could make an argument is not sufficiently broad on Israel going after Hamas in Gaza. There's a larger argument to be made that Israel and the United States have an unprecedented opportunity because of the strikes on Iran earlier at the, sort of in the summer and fall of last year. Iran has no air defenses. Iran is the sponsor state of this 7-front war against Israel that involved Hezbollah, the West Bank, Iran, the Houthis. And so a broad understanding would say, the United States and Israel could together take Iran's nuclear program and its oil platforms out as punishment for what it's doing and as the way of cutting the war off that is broader than just Hamas. Looks like he's not there, right? I'm pretty sure, just as you say, I don't think he wants to do that. He has already said, or there's already talk that Witkoff is supposed to go negotiate with Iran on something or other, which I don't like to hear, but whatever is the case. That said, what he likes is Israeli unilateralism, and he is perfectly willing to release the $4 billion in aid and to say to Israel, you have my blessing. You unleash hell. I'm sitting here with popcorn watching if that's what you think you need to do. That's what that statement is. This is the second time he's done it, right? He said it just before the inauguration, right? When he said, I want all the hostages out or there will be hell to pay. But he said he left that more vague than maybe we would somehow play a role in that. This pretty much is clear. It's like, go if you have to. And I'm making this last effort to say to Hamas, don't F around. If you let these living and dead people out, there is a pathway for you to retain your life. And if you don't, and that's why Bibi has to put some kind of a timestamp on this, because then the effect of the threat will start to piddle away. If you don't, then you're dead. And the Israelis will hunt you down. They hunted down every single terrorist who did the Munich killings.
Yeah, they got them all.
Took 3 years. They killed them all.
They've
been killing Hamasniks in the West Bank right now, and they will spend the rest of your life hunting you down and killing you. And by the way, one thing that is not said, because we know where senior leaders of Hamas are sitting. Some of them are sitting in the Four Seasons in Doha.
Yeah.
Israel has successfully blown up people in the middle of Tehran in an apartment that happened. So
Yeah.
could this happen in Doha? Can they go out to get a cigarette, to smoke a cigarette on the balcony and get taken out? I
Or
think that
or
message
or
could get conveyed.
or meet the Uber Eats driver for their shawarma in the lobby.
Exact same
Yeah,
thing.
same
Whatever it
thing.
is.
Whatever it is. All right,
Right.
hold
So,
on.
yeah.
Stand by, guys.
Okay.
Thank you. Last topic we're going to cover tonight, and then we'll go to your questions. So please, if you want to get in on the conversation, opportunity to ask any of these gentlemen a question, please raise your hand. Here comes, making his international debut on the two-way network, Adam Mockler. Adam, welcome in. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me, Mark. I appreciate that.
All right. So, Adam, you work for Midas Touch. Tell folks what that is.
Midas Touch is an independent media organization. We have 4.3 million subscribers on YouTube. We currently beat Fox and CNN in YouTube views per month. And yeah, we call ourselves a pro-democracy network. So we just focus on pro-democracy stories, and we're trying to basically prove that digital media is the next move. So I was in DC yesterday at the joint address to Congress, and we live streamed to Midas Touch to like 10 to 15,000 live viewers. We're trying to prove the concept of new media.
Amazing. Well, we're cheering you on. We've got a vested interest in your
Just
success.
want to say,
yeah,
I have many ideological disagreements with Midas Touch, as I'm sure Adam can imagine. But that some of the work that they do on social media, the kind of splicing, cutting, finding outrageous things that people that they don't like say, particularly among Republicans, it's pretty impressive. Like, it's a
Yes.
pretty impressive.
they're digital first, video first, with a lot of brain power.
And like,
I appreciate
you guys
that,
are
Jock.
you guys are
Yeah.
going around watching things that nobody else is watching and finding kind of jaw-dropping things that people are saying that it's fair for them to be called out for. So
Yep.
even though I hope your ideological goals are not achieved and that you are kept far from power, I nonetheless appreciate the work that you do.
I appreciate those kind words. We have a really small, tight team, and we use that to try to hold people accountable. But I'm glad that you can recognize that we do.
Yeah, I'm glad he's seen your work. Adam, just a couple more things so people can be familiar with you. Besides YouTube, where does your work appear?
YouTube, Twitter, you can find it on TikTok, Instagram, across all social media platforms, and now on two-way, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. And when John refers to your ideological positions, what is he referring to?
I guess
because you said you're for democracy, so that couldn't be it, because even John's for democracy.
Yeah, pro-democracy is very vague.
Republic. I believe we're a republic, not a democracy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, be for democracy.
I'd call myself a liberal. Republicans would probably call me a soy boy liberal, if you know what I mean. But I'd say that I, broadly speaking, I think that I want to put America first more than most Republicans right now. I will die on this hill. I want to put America first more than most Republicans when it comes to us on the global stage, when it comes to our alliances, and I guess to iron out my positions, I'm just a liberal. Broadly, I'm a liberal.
So just as a shorthand, who's a politician people would know whose views you broadly agree with?
I'm pretty center left in the party, so the last administration I probably agree with. But I'm capitalist, pro free markets.
Yeah.
I'm pretty center left. Yeah.
Would you look at Joe Manchin as too conservative?
For me?
Yeah.
I mean, it depends. Like, if Joe Manchin was running against like Marjorie Taylor Greene, I would vote for Joe Manchin.
Okay, but how about is AOC too left for you?
A little bit. 2 years ago, she was. AOC 2 years ago was far too left. She's kind of gotten more pragmatic. I'd still say she's a little bit to the left of me. Yeah.
Yeah. And you live in the Midwest, right?
I live in Chicago. Yep. I grew up in Indiana.
Okay. Now, DOGE, Sam, put up the what's his name? Elon. Elon was on Capitol Hill today meeting with senators. According to some reports, he gave all the Republican senators, just the Republicans, he gave them his cell number. And he's like, you want to be more in touch with me? By all means, call me anytime. So, Adam, you were on the Hill yesterday. Sam, do we have those pictures of Musk on the Hill? Maybe not. You were on the Hill yesterday, as was I. And I know you talked to folks about DOGE. Oh, wait, here you go. Can we see this or just hear it? I can't see it. All right. I can't see it for whatever reason. Anyway, Adam, what did you find amongst members of Congress and their teams, how they're feeling about DOGE currently?
Okay, so a few things. I talked to a lot of Democratic representatives, and they said that they think that Elon Musk and Donald Trump are taking power away from Congress. And it seems like constituents in red districts feel the same way. Have you guys seen those town hall videos?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it feels like when Elon Musk and Donald Trump are trying to make cuts via the executive branch, they are subverting the power of the purse, which is laid out in Article 1 of the Constitution. At the same time, they were complaining that Elon Musk is doing this in an incredibly reckless way. Every single Democrat that I talked to said they want the government to be more efficient as well. They want the government to be more efficient, but you can't just fire nuclear stockpile workers. Did you see the nuclear stockpile story, or can I explain that?
I saw it, but explain it to others.
Yeah, I mean, they fired a team of nuclear stockpile workers. 24 hours later, they realized these were uniquely qualified, highly specialized people who maintain our stockpiles. So they said, okay, we'll hire them back. But these people were locked out of their federal emails, so there was a multiple day delay. And it's like, this is efficiency? This is the opposite of efficiency. This is a breakneck speed. And I get what Elon Musk is trying to do. On a surface level, when he says the government should be more efficient, I agree, the Democrats agree, but when you look at how he's doing it in this weird, sketchy way where he says he has oversight, but his external oversight is a DOGE account that he runs and selectively tweets from, we've seen multiple errors in the way that he'll say $8 billion just got cut here. It turned out to be $8 million. You guys saw that, right?
Yeah, we did. All right. So, Adam, technically, the name of this program is Two-Way Tonight with Mark Halperin, featuring Alex Castellanos. So I turn you over to Alex for a question about DOGE or whatever Alex would like to ask Alex.
Well, I don't know Adam, and I look forward to getting more familiar with his YouTube channel. Shows you how out of touch I am with somebody who has that many followers, and
it's a brave new world, my friend. It's not just about reading Barron's and Newsweek.
I do watch a lot of Get Off My Lawn YouTube videos, but I've missed Adam's. I admire your youthful enthusiasm and passion. I used to share it, and your idealism. When I look at some of the things you're saying, when you've got a cancer, you cut it out, and you sometimes have to take a little extra tissue. I think the DOGE effort is dealing with a serious situation. And we've sent a lot of doctors with scalpels to try to deal with this before. When you say the Democrats all agree we ought to do something about it, and we'd love government to be more efficient, but actually one of the reasons we have the government we have now, inefficient, wasteful, gorging on the taxpayer that we do, is because they've not done so. And when we've sent Mitt Romney's or tried to send Mitt Romney's and other nice guys to do something about this, they've just they've been chewed up. So I admire your idealism. My concern is that DOGE isn't moving fast enough. It isn't breaking enough, moving fast and breaking things enough, because it's the serious debility that we have in the nation. And you're courageous to find these things we could do better. But tell me how you're going to reverse the massive inertia of this government that has, I think many people think, is just turned into a great scam. And more than that, behind it all is a theory of government that Washington is somehow going to create more programs to solve all our problems and run our lives. What is the theory of government that you propose? Republicans are saying, look, we got to cut this thing down to size, because the best government is bottom up, is trying to let people live their own lives. Donald Trump has the courage to violate those principles now and then, but at least he has some. What are the principles? What do you think the alternative is?
The alternative is that we follow the Constitution. When Article 1 says that Congress has the ability to allocate and appropriate funds, we allow Congress to do that. And we allow, like, do you think there's a reality where Elon Musk could be doing this with more oversight, any amount of oversight? It kind of feels like he's saying they want to do it transparently.
You asked me.
Wait, hold on. I think he meant it rhetorically, but
Well, okay. Again, my limited abilities here. I think anything that you impose the standard oversight on is handing the ball to the other team, because it's not Democrat, it's not Republican, it's the establishment that cannot govern. What do they govern in our world today? They can't govern our economy. They can't govern education. They can't govern foreign policy. They can't govern healthcare. They govern nothing, but they have this gigantic government that is devouring the country. And so,
Can I push back?
yeah, please do.
I mean, you say they govern nothing, but I feel like, I can't remember the exact quote, but there's a quote that's like, someday democracy will have people feeling so comfortable in their day-to-day lives that they look for things to find discomfort with. And I'm not saying, I don't know your life story. I'm not saying you're comfortable, but I think in America.
He's comfortable. He's comfortable.
I'm just saying, I think
the
in
man
America,
is sitting on a boat right now.
in America, we tend to underestimate how well our institutions work. So U.S. aid, it's not that it's not helping us at all. It's that U.S. aid is so incredibly effective at stopping diseases before they get to the U.S.'s door that we don't even have to think about it. So shuttering the U.S. aid offices, there could be a way to do that. You asked me what type of government I propose. There's a way to maybe slash down on efficiency without indiscriminately firing people and without, like, another question I have, and sorry, I just keep throwing you questions. Do you think there's a reason why Elon Musk decided to go for U.S. aid and other programs before the military budget or the Department of these massive budgets where you're more likely to get to $1 trillion in cuts, which I think is his goal? But I just feel like it's antithetical to the goal when Republicans are also passing, what was it, $4.5 trillion tax cuts. So I just don't know, like,
I'd say that's a good point. And I've also said before that I think he ought to prioritize defense, because you'd have a lot more credibility with a lot of people if you bite the hand that feeds Republicans. But it's been 6 weeks, guys, and we've got somebody in there who's actually trying to bring down the Leviathan. When you said people don't appreciate how well some of this works, maybe some of it does, but this election was a referendum on the other part. So my fear about Elon is that he's not moving fast enough.
John, let's hit John. And John, you got a dog in this hunt?
Yeah, I love what you said about Article 1 and Congress having the power of the purse. Congress is the appropriator of the money. The executive branch is supposed to administer the funds and the policies that Congress lays out in legislation that the president signs. The period of time in which the executive branch and the administrative state have taken over policy making, spending, and all of that is not dateable to Republicans. It is mostly dateable to Barack Obama and the world in which Barack Obama said things like, we can't wait. I don't want to wait I don't like that Congress isn't going to pass legislation that I want. So I got a pen and a phone. I'm going to write executive orders, including ones that I know to be unconstitutional, and then we'll see what happens. That was DACA in particular, but various other things. Trump followed suit. Biden followed Trump. Biden put in the student loan forgiveness, having said 3 weeks earlier that it was unconstitutional. Now Trump's doing it. The restoration of the Article 1 preeminence of Congress is a task of your generation, because I'm 64 years old. I've been yelling about this for 13 years, and I'm not pinning this on you, but I don't remember hearing people like you saying anything about how Biden was unconstitutionally seizing congressional authority during his term. I'm really happy if you want to join me and Charlie Cook and various other people in our campaign to restore the primacy of the legislative branch, we can all get together and hold hands and,
Okay.
and do
Hold
that. But
on.
you got to do it in both
Yeah,
directions.
All right, we're gonna get questions in from the
Okay.
community. If you want to get in and get your hands up, but Adam, I'd like you to say, do you agree with John's critique that what Joe Biden did with student loans is no better than what you're criticizing now for Donald Trump?
Okay, so I need to brush up on this argument. From my understanding, Joe Biden took a completely different path to do the student loan after the Supreme Court shot it down, and he followed that lawsuit. I've been traveling for the past few days in DC, but didn't Trump defy that court order to?
No, Trump filed. By the way, Trump filed. A court order was placed. Trump said Trump himself then filed a counter TRO, sought a counter TRO. The Supreme Court this morning is allowing the freeze of a lot of this to go forward. It's too complicated to go into.
All right.
Well,
All right.
Trump defied nothing.
I'm calling.
Okay,
I'm calling. I'm calling time. It's too complicated. Stand by.
Okay.
Stand by. We'll come back to this next episode. The
All right.
internet is limitless. We can all come back. Joe, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell folks who don't know where you are what's on your mind for our outstanding group. My co-host Alex Castellanos, our DOGE correspondent Adam Meckler, and of course John Padoritz, our Mideast correspondent.
Mark, I'm in Nashville. I just want to say, John Podhoretz, you are a legend. The Commentary Magazine podcast. There's a 5-day stretch during June of 2020 when the unraveling was taking place. It was the only source of sanity. That should be in the Library of Congress. Legendary stretch of podcasting.
Thank you.
Interesting. I'm
Thank
going
you.
to go back and listen. What's on your mind, sir?
I wanted to ask you about the, I don't know if you saw Jake Tapper was connected with a book coming out soon about the Biden cover-up. I thought you were going to write that book, Mark, and I wanted to get the panel's thoughts on it. Switching gears from the DOGE conversation, but, where were these people over the last 4 years? Jake Tapper was the one saying Biden's skills were top notch. He was sharp, and now, years later, wants to come around and say, we were part of it. We knew things that we didn't know, and kind of telling this expose tell all. I thought you were gonna be the author of that book.
Yeah. Stay tuned. Hold on.
Stay tuned.
Alex, first question to you. Short answer. How do you say chutzpah in Cuban Spanish?
Coño.
Okay. Adam, what is your perspective on whether the White House press corps and the Washington press corps in general participated in passively or actively in a cover-up of Joe Biden's acuity decline? What's your perspective on that question?
It seems like from most of the reporting I've read that, yeah, they put up a bubble around him during the COVID era and never quite took that bubble down.
And what do you think their motive was? Seems like a pretty good story if you're a reporter to say, hey, the president of the United States is going through severe acuity decline covered up at the highest levels of our government. So why wouldn't the reporters have pursued that story doggedly?
Why wouldn't the reporters have pursued it? I think that because the admin covered it up, as you said, you have to understand that, I'm sure you understand that people who work for an admin are incentivized to keep their position in any way possible. And if that means hiding their boss's decline, but at the same time, I still don't think the decline is as bad as a lot of people say. I mean, yes, he got old and old and old, but I've seen clips of him. Like, I want to ask you, Mark, do you think that Biden on the debate night is Biden like every single day, or was he uniquely bad that night?
Good moments and bad moments. He had moments equally bad. For instance, he talked to a dead congresswoman in public at an event intended to commemorate her passing. He tried to speak to her and asked where she was. So that to me is worse than a debate.
Mark,
because
I like Jake
that's
Tapper.
unfair. I think that's unfair, Mark. A lot of them are dead.
Yeah.
So I like Jake Tapper personally. I like him as a writer. He has set himself a challenge. And he has been gifted by the response that came out from the minute that he announced that he and Alex Thompson were producing this book that is supposed to come out in 2 months, which is, if that book does not go into some detail about the role of the media in the cover-up, it will be an intellectual, political, and a repertorial disgrace. If
John,
it
do you know
does,
how to say Shonda in Cuban Spanish?
Coño.
And his role.
And his role. Well, that's what
Yeah.
I mean. And I
Well,
mentioned
no,
this,
you said the media generally. Alex is saying
and
it
Alex
must
is saying
address
his role,
specific role.
particularly. And I will give you, and I think, Mark, you'll agree with me that there is a model that you could potentially follow here, which is when George Stephanopoulos wrote his memoir of his time in the Clinton White House, All Too Human.
All Too Human, a draft of which I once left in a Korean deli.
Oh, that's a good story.
It is a good story. Go ahead.
That George went after himself.
Yeah.
Talked about his own arrogance, talked about the mistakes that he had made, talked about what happened inside that meant that he did not feel like he was telling people untruths to further the administration's goals and aims and things like that, and covering up the chaos. There is a world in which Jake Tapper, if he wants that book to be something that people will not only buy now, but will cite 25 years from now, he will, and Alex Thompson will go into detail about the media's behavior.
But here's what's confusing. Alex Thompson is one of the few reporters who tried to cover this story. Okay. So he's now attached himself to someone who does not have that same record.
Right.
And I would say that any reporter who did anything related to the Biden White House, who didn't aggressively try to cover this story, I don't care what you say about it now, there's no accounting for the professional malpractice that took place. No.
Yes, there is.
No, there isn't. There's no accounting for it.
I'll account for it.
Resignation. No, I'm saying there's
you want accountability.
Yes,
I can account for it.
No, there's no moral or professional thing you can do to justify the failure. There isn't.
No, here's what you do, though. What people expect from you in a situation like that is, look, we know we're all imperfect. We know we all make mistakes. I've made a few, not many. What people expect is you not only admit you did that, but that you learn and you grow and you're better for
Alex, what is in your career before you became largely retired, a man of leisure on a boat? What would be the professional malpractice equivalent in your profession as a Republican strategist of what the Washington media did in participating in the cover-up and allowing themselves to be intimidated? I can't think of anything.
I can't either.
Right. So my point is, you say admit mistakes. This wasn't like I didn't put a comma in. I didn't put a comma in, or I burned a source. This is years. This is years. Sorry to filibuster. This is years of professional malpractice against the public interest to stop Donald Trump from being elected.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
You said there's no accounting for it. That's the account for it. The accounting for it was that
that's the explanation.
The media was
that's
in
the explanation, but that's
right,
not accountability.
Right.
But that's not
accountability. But the reason that they did it, and the reason that they covered it up, and the reason that the fates and karma and God, whatever, punished them with the 2024 election results, is that they believed that it was the moral and proper and appropriate thing to do, to put their finger on the scale, to hide the truth that they knew, because the result, if they could do it and push Biden over the finish line, Trump would be prevented from getting back into power.
Can I,
Adam, let's hear from Adam.
Can I ask a question really quickly?
Yeah.
I feel like the amount of you guys are downplaying the amount of coverage there was on Biden's age. First of all, if you look at just right-wing media spheres, they were talking about Biden's age relentlessly. But I just found something saying in the last 5 months of 2023, there were 10 times as many articles focused on Biden's age or mental acuity as most articles written on.
You're conflating age and mental acuity. They're not the same.
It says age or mental acuity. Yeah,
most of them were about age.
Adam, can I just answer this? Because I have a daily podcast. I've had a daily podcast, as Joe notes, and thank you very much again, since March of 2020. And I can tell you that from early 23, late 22, early 23, on this podcast, at least twice a week, we would say, Biden, there's something wrong, and nobody is talking about it.
You guys were
go
talking
back.
about it.
I could clip 100 clips of me. You say the right-wing media were talking about it. That's true. I'm in the right-wing media. I was talking about it. And what I was talking about wasn't just that he was slipping. It was that Jake Tapper wasn't talking about it. Because, yeah, I have a pretty good, substantial podcast audience, but I'm not on a network. I'm not David Muir. I'm not Lester Holt. Wasn't Nora O'Donnell. I wasn't on the, 60 Minutes wasn't doing a story about Biden's mental acuity and problems. It was doing stories about other stuff and not covering the elephant in the room. And as I say, I was thinking last night that if Biden had screwed up the State of the Union last year, right, which was almost exactly this time last year, instead of performing, like clearing the bar that people were already saying, like, oh my God, what happens if he loses it?
He did well.
If he
did great.
lost, but if he had lost it, Trump might not be president now. Because if he had lost it then, the way he lost it in June, Democrats would have had 3 months to have a campaign, to get a candidate, to have a race, to have him out, to have a national, 80 million people would have said he's got to go. And then there would have been, wouldn't have been just handed off to Kamala, who was clearly not.
Let me get my co-host in here.
Yeah.
Alex Castellanos,
Joe's
co-host.
Joe's question was about a guy who denied that this was a concern. Biden's mental decline was a concern, who is now writing a book about the importance of Biden's mental decline. How does
and the failure of the system, the failure of the system to expose it.
Agreed. Absolutely. When I have the occasional privilege of teaching a class about political strategy in a situation like this, what do? My rule is you do what a decent human being would do. If you walk in with a big ketchup stain on your shirt and everybody's looking at you wondering, Jake Tapper, but you didn't cover this. Nobody's going to listen to you if you got a big ketchup stain in your shirt and you walk into a room and you start writing a book or talking about anything. What do? You've got to say, oh my God, look at this. I've got a ketchup stain on my shirt. It was a great hamburger. Now you can address it. He's got to address the central issue.
Yeah. I'm sure he will a little bit.
Yeah,
sure at least a little bit.
John was right saying he's got to absolutely tell the truth, which is I was trying to save the country from a bad man. That's how politically partisan I was.
He can't say that, Alex.
Failed as a journalist.
He can't say that. He can't say that. Adam, let me ask you one more question before we.
Otherwise,
Adam, before we go, Adam, I just want to ask you a question. Your reaction to this topic was to try to argue that this was covered, right? That's what you turned to,
no,
right?
I think you guys are underestimating the amount of coverage there was. I mean, people called him Dementia Joe.
You're saying this was covered, but it wasn't covered enough to produce an impact until the debate, even though he was exhibiting signs of this for practically a decade.
A decade? Okay.
2017. So
okay,
7 years, not a decade.
So in 2017,
yeah.
In 2019, Donald Trump coined the nickname Dementia Joe. In 2020, he would tweet the name Dementia Joe every single day. I mean, everybody was fixated on Biden's age.
Not everybody, not CNN.
Well, Donald Trump had as many opportunities as possible in the 2020 election to focus on Biden's age, and Biden still won. The American people still chose him. Donald Trump said that he still won the election. Donald Trump claims to this day that he won that election. I just want to point out. So if we want to talk about trying to entrench your power, that should be a conversation we have on the next episode. But to continue answering your question, I just think that, I think that in 2022, his mental decline was not as bad as it was in 2023. I think it's been getting worse and worse, and I don't think the media was trying to cover it up to help defeat Trump. I don't believe that.
Okay. I wish, honest to God, I wish that I could share your view, because
we're gonna talk more about this. And Adam, I hope you'll come back in general. But when we next convene to talk about this topic, probably around the release of that book, we hope you'll come back, because I really enjoy your point of view about this and appreciate your determination on your point of view. So very grateful to you for being on.
And
it.
I'm not
Again,
even
we would
arguing
like to
that
have you back
Biden
regularly.
didn't have decline whatsoever. I'm just saying.
I understand.
In 2020, I think that Donald Trump said, someone in the comments just said it, and Donald Trump said this repeatedly, he's a basement candidate, he has
Yeah.
dementia, and there were a bunch of clips of Biden stumbling over his words in 2020. We can all agree that he's always put his foot in his mouth when he spoke, but it's worse than that. It's way, way worse than that now. It is actual decline. But in 2020, I'm not sure the decline that you guys are saying was there. Was there? It seems like you guys have this belief that
I'm
over
not
the
talking
past,
about 2020. I'm talking about 23, 24.
I'm talking
Honestly,
about
that was when-
2017. I'm talking about 2017.
Well, you're
to
talking
tell you
about
the truth.
2017.
there's
And
no,
by the way,
yeah.
Yeah.
by the way,
he had good days and bad
Julian
days.
Castro,
But yeah,
or was it Joaquin, whichever Castro it was that was running for president, tried to get him into a
Yeah.
senility trap in one
Yeah.
of the debates.
yeah.
So
Adam,
yes, it was a standing issue. In
we got to go. But he had good days and bad days, and his bad days became more frequent over time. But his bad days were as bad in 2017 as they were in 2022.
I think there's going to be a good I think there's a good conversation to be had. The question that I want to talk about the next show is, was the media intentionally, and it's your show, so was the media intentionally covering this up in order to get Trump reelected? I think that's an interesting question that you.
It is, and we will talk about it. And just to be clear, it's not my show. I co-hosted with Alex.
Okay,
but according
my
to,
bad. Sorry, Alex.
No, I'm kidding. But according to page 6, there's talk of you're replacing Alex. So we'll see. Very grateful to everybody for joining. Great questions, John. Thank you, Alex, Adam, and thank you for Joe for kicking off a firestorm of sorts. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, morning meeting. 6 o'clock, this program. I've gotten some inquiries during the show. David Bonson talking about tariffs is not available on YouTube. So if you want to be part of that program, you got to come here on the Zoom. And to do that, go to 2a.tv/TBG, the Bonson Group, TBG. It'll be in the new Substack too if you get my Substack. But that's 7 o'clock tomorrow. Again, private event only on this platform. Sign up now, 2a.tv/ I'm waiting for the graphic to come up. That's why I'm talking slowly. Wipe us all out. Put the graphic up full. There you go. Don't try to watch it on YouTube. You'll be sorely disappointed. Adam, great to have you here again. Truly, I hope you'll come back regularly.
I really enjoyed it. I'll be your resident soy boy.
Awesome. And Alex, thank you for co-hosting. John, thank you. Thanks to David Bonson, the sponsor of this program, the Bonson Group. Grateful for everybody watching. I'll see you at 9 a.m. with Sean and Dan on the morning meeting. Sayonara.